Okay, good evening, everyone. Tonight, August 3rd, 2021 at 5:33 is a meeting for the Election Commission for the City of Lowell. The first thing we will do is a roll call. So Chairwoman Zaniku.
Here.
Vice Chairman Poe.
Here.
Commissioner Anthus.
Yes. Here.
And Commissioner Patton.
Here.
Okay, so all commissioners are present. So we're going to now move to item 2A, which is a vote regarding acceptance of meeting minutes from the prior meeting. I believe the chair requested just a few minutes to review the meeting minutes, and then we can have a vote.
Minutes reflect what we're actually approving.
Yes. So yeah, and for the record, the meeting minutes are the minutes for the meeting on July 15th, 2021 and July 29th, 2021.
No.
I'm sorry, July 20th, 2021 and July 15th, 2021. The meeting started at 5:33 p.m. All set? Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of July 15th, 2021. Motion to approve from Chairwoman Zaniku, seconded by Commissioner Anthus. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. I'll also entertain a motion to accept the meeting minutes of the July 20th, 2021 Election Commission meeting. Motion by the Chairwoman. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Anthus. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. So that was the acceptance of the meeting minutes. Okay, moving on to the next item of business. It is item 3A, discussion on, again, polling locations for city's 8 municipal districts for 2021 municipal elections. And there's also a item sub I, which is an update on the parties' joint emergency motion to amend the consent decree in the Hewitt matter. And on the call, I have the city solicitor here, but if the solicitor doesn't object, we can provide an update on that if you wish.
Actually, if I could
Yep.
just address just a quick question in terms of good evening or good afternoon, everyone. I guess a question that I had is I noticed on your agenda the nomination paper update is last on the agenda. And I don't know if it makes sense to take that out of order, since that may have an impact on polling locations as well as in particular early voting. And as far as the update, feel free to update them. The court approved the language that both parties had submitted. But if you want to give them a more thorough update.
Yeah, Chairman, if you want, I could take item 3C out of order and address it first, if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay. So just a brief update on the submission of nomination papers for the 2021 municipal election. As you know, today at 5 o'clock is the last day in which one can submit nomination papers. So as you know, the deadline has passed. We have received quite a few signatures from other candidates today. So we are in the process of reviewing those. As of right now, we are not looking at a citywide or the need for a citywide preliminary for both city council and school committee as of right now. We're going to be double checking that, but at this stage, we are only looking at the need for a preliminary election in certain districts. So as a result, there are certain districts where and again, we need to confirm this, and we will have to review, nomination papers.
What's the rule on it?
So the rule is double plus one. So if the number of candidates that have submitted nomination papers and are qualified to run for office, being that they are registered to vote in the city of Lowell and they are residents of the city of Lowell, and for district seats they run in the district for a year. If the number of candidates is double the number of available seats plus one, that triggers a preliminary in that race. So for at-large, for city council, there are 3 city council at-large seats. So double plus one would be 7. So if we had 7 candidates running, that would trigger a preliminary. For school committee, for citywide. For school committee, there are 2 seats at-large. So double plus one would be 5. So if we have 5 at-large candidates running for school committee, that would trigger the need for a preliminary. So looking at the nomination log, and again, as of right now, we will double check that. If we look at district, first I'll look at large, and then we can go district by district. So if we look at large, you'll see that there are 6 that are qualified for city council, and 3 that have qualified for school committee, 1, and potentially 4 people who have submitted. So as of right now, we are not looking at the need for a at-large preliminary election for citywide. So if we go by district, for District 1, we have 2 candidates running for city council that have qualified, and 2 that are running for school committee that have qualified. So as a result, that doesn't trigger a preliminary election in District 1. In District 2, we have 3 people who are qualified to run for city council in District 2. So as a result, that would trigger a preliminary election for city council for that district. For school committee, we only have 2, so that it wouldn't trigger a school committee race for there. And for District 3, 3 candidates have qualified for the city council race there, so that would trigger a preliminary election for District 3. For District 4, for school committee, we only have 2, so it would not trigger one for school committee. For District 4, we have 3 people who have qualified for City Council District 4. So that would trigger a preliminary for District 4. And same thing, actually, no, strike that. And we only have 2 that have qualified for school committee in District 4. So that would not trigger a preliminary for the school committee. For District 5, we have 2 that have qualified for City Council there. As a result, that would not trigger a preliminary in District 5. There was a 3rd, but he withdrew his nomination. So there's only 2. For District 6, there are only 2 that are qualified for City Council. That does not trigger a preliminary for District 6. For District 7, there are 3 that have qualified in District 7. As a result, that would trigger a preliminary for City Council there. And finally, for District 8, we only have 2 there. So that. Oh, for 5, well, because the school committee are together, so there are no, so because none of the school committee races have run, in the ones that we indicated, have triggered the need for preliminary, that, right, the rest of them don't, because remember, we combined 2 of them into 1. So as a result, the ones I indicated are the only races so far that have indicated as of this moment the need for a preliminary. Now, obviously, as we go through the nomination papers, that might be subject to change, but as of right now, it is not. So that's what we're looking at right now.
I can just see massive opinion of these words. You have voter, don't have voter.
Well,
so it's going to take a real education.
Yeah, and certainly, once the races are finalized, and again, just to use the calendar by way of reference. So we're going to be reviewing signatures, starting today, finishing up and making sure. Again, our procedures are that we review signatures as we receive them. So that's how, whatever's in the queue, we process that way. The posting of the list of candidates is August 18th, 2021. August 19th is the last day and hour to file withdrawals or objections to nominations. And then Friday, August 20th is the drawing of the ballot positions for those races that trigger municipal preliminary. And again, under our procedures, under the charter, it's a random draw. So we pull out the bingo machine, roll it, and that'll determine ballot order for those races I indicated that have triggered it.
So if they have multiple polling places, they have the same order in each polling place?
Yes. And what I mean by that is that if there's a race being held in a district that has 2 or more polling locations, everyone's voting for the same candidates.
I understand that, but the order on the ballot is the same in each one of the polling locations.
Yes.
You don't randomize them in each one.
No.
Nobody has an advantage.
When I say randomize the order, it's the order on the ballot
I
itself.
understand that.
Right.
I understand that, but I've been in places where we have ballots like that they don't give the same order each time, because I'm sure Charles Stewart can tell us that people at the top of the ballot have the advantage. And if you mix them up, it eliminates that advantage.
Oh, well, no. So for the preliminary election, the random draw is the random draw. So it'll be universal on the ballot. Now for the municipal election, the order on the ballot is how it's done on the state level. So on the state level, it's incumbents listed first, I believe alphabetically, and then challengers alphabetically. And that's the procedure, on the state level. Per our charter, the random draw is only done for the preliminary election. So that concludes, I guess, my update on, again, the nomination papers for 2021 as of right now. So
we're not going to know the final numbers until next week, August 18th.
well, we are. Everyone here in the office is going to work to try to, process it, and we've been processing them as we've been receiving them. So, as you see on our internal spreadsheet that I sort of listed off of, you see all these entries in green. The entries in green are those that have already qualified, that we've already gone through their nomination papers and determined that they've met the signature requirement. So, and in terms of our counting procedures, we follow state laws and regulations. And the way it works on the state level is that you count up to the threshold and then you count 20% more. So, 20% of 150 signatures it's 180 in total. So once we count up to 180, we stop because that candidate has met not only the 150 signature threshold, but the additional 20%. And then we move on, from there. But again, we count these pages as we receive them. So. Okay, so that pretty much concludes my update regarding C. So if we may, we can move back to item 3A. So again, just to update the commissioners. So on Thursday, last Thursday, July 29th, the city of Lowell and the plaintiffs filed a joint motion to the federal court to amend the federal consent decree in the Hewitt matter to allow for sub-districting of our municipal districts. Because again, prior to that, the consent decree did not envision that. So it was filed on an emergency basis, and we received word on Friday that the federal court, it was the Honorable Judge Cabell, granted that emergency motion. So as of right now, there are still ministerial matters that are being done to finalize that. But as of right now, and given the court's approval, the Election Commission now has the authority to sub-district our municipal districts. So, which is good news. So, we just wanted to, again, update the Election Commission of that and state that, as of Friday, the Election Commission has the authority under the federal consent decree to sub-district the municipal districts as necessary. So, on that point, moving back to sort of the search for polling locations, I just want to update the commissioners as to my current, again, search. As I indicated in the last meeting, I reached out to the Lowell Housing Authority regarding the use of the property. Excuse me while I take out my notes. I reached out to the community center at the Highland Parkway residential project. And I spoke with Sarita Barrios and I reviewed the property, and it looked like a good location to serve as a polling location in District 5, the second one. Ms. Barrios indicated that she was going to check with LHA to make sure that the community center could be kept open as long as required to serve as a polling location. And just to remind everyone, we have the areas that serve as polling locations open at 6 o'clock so that poll workers can come in and set up. And then the polls open at 7 o'clock and they remain open all day until 8 o'clock when the polls close. And then the poll workers stay after 8 to make sure that everything is, they process the ballots, they make sure everything's secured, and they get everything ready for return to City Hall. So I spoke with Ms. Barrios and also indicated that, in terms of our setup, we'd also need to access the property the day before to set up the wooden booths to have DPW deliver them and make sure our tables are set up so that when the poll workers and the police officer arrives, they'll be, ready to go. And then usually our procedure is that the day after, DPW goes and picks up all the equipment. So Ms. Barrios indicated that she would check with Lowell Housing Authority just to make sure that was fine. She didn't envision it would be a major issue, but she wanted to confirm it. I haven't heard from her yet. I did leave a message with her today, just inquiring on status on that. My hope is that I will find out hopefully soon, just to confirm that everything will work on that location. In terms of and also just again, just to reiterate, I also double checked some of the other locations like the VFW and things like that. And they indicated that they would not be available as of right now for 5. For district,
So
oh
you
yes.
reached out to Sarita last week Tuesday, right? You gave this update last week Tuesday.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so she hasn't responded within a week?
No, not as of yet. That's why I thought she would respond by Monday. I haven't heard yet, though. That's why I called her and I left a message with her.
Did
So.
you send an email?
No, I didn't. I'll send an email as well. Generally speaking, she has been responsive to my phone calls, but
Okay.
I'll make sure to send an email as well, just in case. Yeah. And then in regards to District 8, I again attempted to reach out to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The phone wasn't working, but Aurora Erickson with Coalition for Better Acre was able to get in touch with someone who's a congregant of the church, who in turn reached out to the bishop. So I sent, so I have the contact information of the bishop, and I sent him an email sort of outlining our needs. And I was able, I got that contact information late. Yeah, so I was able to send him an email, so hopefully we'll work on that. Additionally, last Friday,
So you haven't heard back from them either?
not yet, no, I haven't heard back from the bishop, but I did email him today, so so hopefully I will hear from him. Something I also did last week is I found that there was a charter school that is near the Rourke Bridge. It's the Lowell Collegiate Charter School. And last week, I reached out to the school to see if they would be interested in serving as a polling location. I spoke with, I believe he was, forgive me, I forgot his position. He was either an educational director, or he was sort of a office manager of planning. I spoke with the gentleman, and he indicated that the collegiate school might be interested, but that he was not in charge of that matters. It was actually a director of sort of student affairs that would be in charge of that decision. And she's on vacation this week. But he asked that I send an email to him, and that he would immediately forward that email to her, so that she would receive it and get back to us. I did that on Friday, and I did receive a confirmation email from the gentleman that he had forwarded it to the director, so that she did receive it.
There's a very large Hindu temple right there too.
There's a Hindu temple?
Yes.
Yeah, there are.
Very large, right near the road bridge, just
Oh.
on the other, what is the street that goes across the Rourke Bridge?
Yeah.
That is, but just to this side of that street is the Hindu temple.
Is it a larger?
Very large.
Okay.
Lots of work.
Do you know the address of it?
It's on Middlesex Street.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Vita. This is,
Oh, solicitor?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I understand that this wasn't where you're going to have your meeting. However, I don't know about others that are on the call. It's kind of difficult to hear what the commission is talking about.
Oh.
And even though it's, recorded, if you can't hear it, you can't, you're not going to be able to hear it on the recording either. So if there's some way of maybe just being mindful of that, to be able to raise your voice when speaking.
sure,
Sure.
yeah.
And then the question, I guess, that I had is, looking at both early voting as well as selection of the polling locations, and an ability to start getting information out sooner rather than later. Whether it would, and I know our Professor Stewart is here with us, and I guess one of the questions I have is, would it make sense to at least focus on those areas where we absolutely know that there's going to be a contest, and begin really focusing on identifying polling locations there, so that even if other locations, it's still going to take perhaps some extra work, we can at least start getting the word out, and people will begin to know where there are definitely going to be polling locations in areas where there are contests coming up in September.
Have we already decided how the districts have been divided?
So I think that's, city solicitor, I think that's a great idea. But can we finish this update first, and then we're gonna give the professor an opportunity to speak. And then toward the end of this, we can wrap everything up and see where we stand, right?
Okay.
Sure.
Well, that was essentially my update. Those are the communications I've had with sort of other other potential polling locations in 8 and 5. And those are, and again, those are the 2 districts where we know we would need another one. So, and the search goes on.
So, well, we don't have our meeting notes from last time, right?
Nope.
Okay. So we went through all of the districts last meeting. Do you have,
Yes,
you have yours?
I do recall though, and we did go district by district, and I have the map here. So if I'll share the screen, I can show,
So actually, Professor
Professor
Stewart, would you probably have all the notes that we went through both Monday last week as well as Tuesday last week, and where we already subdivided the districts. Can you go through that, please?
Actually, I don't know that I could put my hands on those notes right now, and
if I may, I do have the notes sort of as we discussed district by district, and if you'd like, I can go through it right now. So I've shared the map right here, just so we can go district by district. So, based on our discussions, and I just want to double check, can everyone hear me on the call? Yeah. So when we went district by district, just starting with District 1, what we focused on were those districts that had 2 or more polling locations. So for District 1, we have Pawtucket Memorial Elementary School and McAvenue School that are geographically within District 1. Therefore, the 2 polling locations for District 1 would be those 2 schools, Pawtucketville and McAvenue. Now, we then went to District 2, and District 2, if you look right here, and I'll zoom in here on the share screen. For District 2, you'll see that we have Robinson School and Greenhelge Elementary School Gymnasium, which are the 2 polling locations within District 2. So for District 2, we were going to be using those 2 as polling locations for District 2. For District 3, and I'll scroll over here, you'll see that District 3 has the Immaculate Conception Church, the Riley School, and J.G. Pine School. And for this location, we came to the conclusion that the Riley School and Immaculate Conception Church would be probably the best locations because they were closest to the most voters and were sort of geographically, within sort of a good position for District 3. Now for District 4, which is right here, and again, District 4 is the one that is geographically divided by the river. It was determined that, to make it easier, I'm going to reference it as District 4 North and District 4 South. So north of the river, south of the river, just to make it easy for frame of reference. For District North South, because the Lowell High School cafeteria is in the middle.
District 4 North or District 4 South? I'm
sorry, District 4 South. I'm sorry. So District 4 South, again, south of the river, is right here, and I'm using my cursor to circle it. Right, because Lowell High School is centrally located and has been a popular and commonly used polling location. Lowell High School would serve as the polling location for all of District 4 South. Now for District 4 North, which is up here, right, because they have those wards and precincts that traditionally voted at Greenhelge, that would be the one where the voters here would also go to Greenhelge. So Greenhelge right now is the location that would serve voters in both District 4 North and those portions of District 2 that we split. Okay. So for District 5, this is the one that has the Butler Middle School, and this is the one where we identified we would need another polling location. So, and again, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to use the Lowell Housing Authority's location there. Yep. And so that's the Butler Middle School for District 5, as well as the Lowell Housing Authority Center on right here at Chelmsford Street. For Districts 6 and 7, right here, it was our determination that because they're so geographically small, and I don't mean small in a negative sense, but they're so geographically compact and the voters are so there, that it only needed 1 polling location. So that the Maury and the Senior Center would serve as the 1 polling location for 6 and 7 respectively. And finally, that leaves us with District 8, where it was determined, again, that one is served by the Daly and the Bailey School. And right now, our search is looking for a location that's more north of District 8. But as of right now, the Daly School would serve as the other location.
So we would have the Daly and then the charter.
Well, we don't know yet. That's what we're still actively looking for, that other location. And that's why I've reached out to the charter school and to the LDS church as well as other locations. So that's sort of where we're at.
Well, the determination is polling places presumes we already know where the lines are going to be drawn. Is that correct? Otherwise, how do you know?
Yes, and sort of from what we've sort of been looking at and from what I've been sort of learning so far is that the recommendation that I've been hearing so far is that if we are to subdivide districts, if we can keep it within our old ward and precinct lines, it would be easier. And that is probably the best way to approach it because of, the fields in the poll pads. Because you can shift the ward and precinct into one column and then have the district sort of number. So, and you'll notice that, for some of these districts, that can be, for instance, District 1, the wards and precincts still fit within the municipal boundaries.
So they're not defunct.
Well,
Like for the purposes of this, they're not defunct. Right?
for purposes of this, they can serve as a line of demarcation. And it would be easier than drawing our own lines, because if we draw our own lines, we would have to manually code it
Absolutely.
in the system, which
And it
would,
wouldn't make sense.
right, which would be extremely difficult.
This is perfect. I'm
So,
glad we got here. This is absolutely perfect.
right, so, and again, if that's sort of how we want to approach it, we can do it that way and then see,
Makes the most sense.
yeah, it seems like it would make the most sense, and then it can be evaluated to make sure that it would work.
Mhm.
But, in terms of, using it as a line of demarcation, it would be easier than simply drawing our own lines, and then we would have to go street by street to make sort of that determination. So those were my notes from last week. And that's sort of where our, conclusions were based on, our determination of polling locations. Again, the idea was to promote continuity and to use whatever polling locations we currently have to the maximum extent possible. So, moving from there to where we sort of stand right now in the preliminary election, as indicated, based on the notes, we're looking at essentially several districts where there was city council, and I apologize, I don't have the notes in front of me, but
City council, what do you want?
yeah, so it might be useful at this stage to go over the city council races that we know are going to occur and what districts they are
For
occurring in.
preliminary?
Yes, for a preliminary election.
District 2, District 3, District 4, and District 7.
7, okay. So as of right now, for the preliminary election, and again, I'm just saying, this could be subject to change depending on the search, but as of right now, based on who's qualified, we're looking at District 2, District 3, District 4 right here, and District 7 right here as our point. So it's essentially Northeast Lowell into central Lowell right here with District 7. So these are the four these are the four districts as of right now that have met the threshold for a preliminary for city council, not school committee. So in light of that, it would appear that based on sort of the analysis that the election commission and Professor Stewart has done, each of these districts we have polling locations identified, that would serve. So it's the what the election commission could do at this stage is I would say at this stage you could move to approve the locations that you identified as the polling locations for these districts for for purposes of the preliminary. And we could certainly bring this up with Professor Stewart. Professor Stewart, do you think that this would be sort of a appropriate course of action, given that we've sort of identified this and we know as of this stage that these are the districts that are looking at preliminaries right now on September 21st.
Right. I mean, we've talked about this, and these appear to be good polling locations. The next step, of course, is to figure out the division of the wards and precincts that get assigned to those polling places. And on the one hand, that's a pretty straightforward thing to do. With the first cut, the important part, which will take a little, we want to get this right, is to make sure that voters are directed to the proper polling places, especially the voters who live in those areas where the new districts cut across existing precincts. And that's where, it's going to be important for me to, for basically the team to work on that is the Election Commission. I think y'all have a good GIS department, and then the state, just to make sure that those voters are properly identified, not only in the poll pads, but in any communications that go to voters. And just the final thing I'll say, with your indulgence, is that I've not talked to the commission or the staff about this, but I think we need to recall that voters will get official or quasi-official notifications from two sources that we have to keep in mind. One will be whatever the city sends to voters, but keep in mind that the state maintains a website with polling locations where you can look up where you go. And that's actually the trickier one. And I don't want to get down into the weeds, but that's where the overlap with the existing districts is really critical. Mm-hmm. And so as we move ahead, I think we need to remember that the interface with the state is an important part here, because we know a large number of voters will go to the state website, despite the fact that the city will be working hard to communicate directly. You never know where voters are going to go for information. And so we want to make sure that every likely place they would go has the correct information.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very good point to bring up. And I know that there were, I think, in some communications with the state, there was some discussion as to they can create a redirect potentially. So if someone goes to the state website, it would redirect perhaps to a city website that would, that could list it that way. But it could also be that maybe the state has figured out a way in which, the state system will, show voters the correct polling location that they go. It's certainly something that we'll definitely, follow up with the state, and we have to follow up with the state to make sure that that's accurate and correct.
That's right, and need to do it quickly, of course.
Yeah, and quickly. Yeah.
And I have nothing else to say, by the way, so I think
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think something that might be useful is, as I indicated, based on sort of what we're looking at so far, maintaining the wards and precincts lines is, I think probably the best approach right now in terms of directing voters where they would go in terms of polling locations. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with the understanding that, for those that are, for those split districts, we'd also identify that, that ward and precinct. Just so the understanding that whatever sliver is there would also go to the polling location. So I think what might be, good at this stage is for those districts that we know are going to have a preliminary right now, we can go to each one and identify the wards and precincts, and then assign them to a polling location based on their where they are geographically. If that's fine, we'll start from there. How's that? So I think what we'll do is we'll start with District 2. So, and again, just going to the screen share right here, District 2 is up here in the north right here, and it's the blue one. So we have the Robinson School and the Green Helge Elementary School. And Something that would also be useful, and let me pull it up right now, is unfortunately, I don't think I can share them both, but I'm going to pull up the polling locations from last year, because last year it was done by wards and precincts. So we can see where those locations, where those wards and precincts went to which polling location, and that might help us serve as a guide, and when we're assigning them this way based on the districts. So I'm just going to pull this up here and move it to the side. I'll try to move it to the side.
I think you have a question in the chat.
Okay, I'm sorry,
I think you have a question in the chat.
in the chat.
I think so.
This is from Mary. She indicated, I know we mentioned it in previous meetings, but we're also doing phone banking across the city. And we'll add polling locations to the scripts. I know a commissioner mentioned of other outreach methods. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, something that we could coordinate, but I think the key thing is we got to make sure that we get this right first before, anything is sort of brought out in the open or advertised. So, okay, so starting with District 2, we have the Robinson School and the Greenhelge Elementary School. So last year, and again, last year was the federal elections. For the Robinson School, we had wards 9-2 and 9-3 vote at the Robinson School. So 9-2 is right here and 9-3 is here. And both of these voted at the Robinson School. So I think in light of the fact that both 9-2 and 9-3 voted at the Robinson School, I think it should remain the same. That voters for District 2 here in wards 9-2 and 9-3 should vote at the Robinson School again. And then for the remaining voters in District 2, so we're looking at Ward 9-1, Ward 5-3, and Ward 5-2, they would vote at the Greenhelge, which is the same as what happened last year. The voters in 9-1, 5-3, and 5-2 voted at Greenhelge.
Yep.
Okay, so that would be the line of division for District 2. Does that make sense for everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now we'll go to District 3. So for District 3, we have the Riley School and Immaculate Conception Church. So for the Riley School, the voters who voted at the Riley School, and let me just check here on my key right here, was wards 1-2 and 1-3. So if we look right here, this is Ward 1-2 and this is 1-3, and they're right next to the Riley School and they fit in. So, and then for the Immaculate Conception Church, the voters from Ward 1, Precinct 1 voted at Immaculate Conception. And then that finally leaves Ward 11-3 and this little sliver here in 11-2. So I would submit that the voters here could go to the Immaculate Conception Church there. So that would split your district 2-2.
So Ward 1-2 and 1-3 for Riley, and then for Immaculate, it's 1-1 and 11-3.
11-3. Also include 11-2 though,
11-2.
because as you'll notice, there's this little sliver right here
Okay, yep.
in 11-2.
Yeah.
So we have to include 11-2 as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Those other people that have moved on there.
Not from the, I'm from 1-2. 1-2.
Okay. So then,
But I always thought about that.
okay. So then that takes us to 4. So for 4, as indicated, the Lowell High School is a good central location for everyone in 4 south of the river. So all the voters in 4, so by ward, if we base it by ward and precinct, it's Ward 2, Precinct 1, Ward 2, Precinct 2, Ward 2, Precinct 3, Ward 4, Precinct 3, Ward 10 Precinct 3, and Ward 10 Precinct 2. And again, I'm basing this on, where District 4 is sort of carved out. So that's all the wards and precincts that have District 4 voters. So all of them would go to Lowell High School. And then if we go up north, we have Ward 5 Precinct 3 and Ward 5 Precinct 2. So they, the voters in there that are in District 4, they would go to Green Helge Elementary School.
5-2 and what?
5-2 and 5-3. So these are so these are north of the river.
Got it.
Just-
And yes, go ahead.
Just a point. I mean, it's looking on the map, it all makes sense, but getting from that Rogers School area up to the Lowell High School, given all the construction going on, is not trivial. Because you have to go through the Lord Overpass construction, or you end up going up Central Street, which is one way. It's not easy to get to, so we may get some blowback on that.
Well,
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I look at the map and it looks great, but if you have to drive that,
yeah,
especially if you're going after work and rush hours,
yeah.
stuff.
There are challenges, but I would note too that, I will update you on item B. We will have early voting and mail-in voting as well, which might help, that situation. And again, Lowell is probably the most central, is again, the central location here. So I think, in terms of sort of setup and geography, I think that's the best location right now. So this would be for,
District 4.
District 4 South, and then for District 4 North, again, Ward 5 Precinct 3, Ward 5 Precinct 2 would go to Green Helge. And I just noticed there's also a little sliver here in 5 Precinct 1. So include 5 Precinct 1 there as well.
North of the river.
North of the river, right? They go to Green Helge. And again, we don't even know if there are people there, but we have to include it as well, just to be on the safe side, okay? Okay, so that is District 4. So that leaves us with District 7. And again, District 7 is only going to have one polling location in the senior center. So, and historically, in the previous, last year, the voters who went to senior center were Ward 7, Precinct 1, 2, and 3. So if we look at the map here, this is 7, Ward 7, 1, 7, 2, and 7, 3. So as you notice, so 7-1, 7-2, and 7-3, we've got voters in all of them. So the voters here will go to senior center. So starting from the top, Ward 2, Precinct 1, Ward 2, Precinct 2, Ward 3, Precinct 2, Ward 7, Precinct 1, Ward 7, Precinct 2, Ward 7, Precinct 3. All the voters there will vote at the senior center. Oh, I just noticed something. I'm just zooming in. There's a very slight sliver here. I think that's the overpass, and I don't think anyone lives there, but we'll have to check that. So just to check it, add Ward 2, Precinct 3, and add Ward 4, Precinct 3. Again, I think this is the Lord Overpass, but we should double check that. So we'll double check that in GIS to make sure there are no voters there, but include those as well.
Elliot,
Big construction site.
Yes, Chris?
I think Professor Stewart might have had something he wanted to add.
Oh, yes, Professor Stewart.
Actually, it was just to point out the 2-3 peninsula there,
Yep.
which I think you actually might have 1 or 2 voters there.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. So, we've included that in, for District 7 too. So that's good. So,
Can we check the chat again?
sure. From the chat,
Yeah, read them.
Wayne Janess indicated there's a tiny bit of 5-1 in District 4-2, in District 4-2. Okay, so let's check that first. So that's 5-1. Let's see here. Oh, yes, 5-1. I think we did identify 5-1. We
Yeah, we
did.
did.
Yeah, so we did identify 5-1 as well for District 4. And we have 2 inquiries regarding, please consider using the Rogers School for District 4 as well. I think
So we know we have the Immaculate and then.
no, that's
I'm sorry,
District 3.
District 3.
District 4, we have LHS and the Green Elm.
Right, the Green Helch for that.
So
So
if we have a third, if we add a third, it will be the Riley again.
no, if we added a third,
Sorry,
it'd be
not the Rogers.
it'd be the
Yeah,
Rogers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people live right
I
around
don't
there.
see why
There's
not.
several large apartment buildings.
So you're thinking three polling locations for
Yeah,
4?
why not before?
We could ask Professor
I mean,
Stewart.
could
what's-
we, sorry to interrupt. Could we hear from Professor Stewart as to, I mean, again, well, anyway, maybe to.
Well, I mean, I think the consideration, if I may, I mean, I think the consideration is just how much administrative complexity the system can handle, given the splitting of the precincts overlying the divided districts. And so, again, since I'm not in Lowell, I don't understand the traffic issues, but you do need to consider kind of further dividing that section, the number of voters who would end up at a sub-district down there, how many, kind of how many of your top poll workers you have to deploy and those sorts of things. So those are questions that I can't answer, but it does add a degree of complexity for the election.
And I would have to say that I would echo those concerns as well, because part of the issue too is that you already, I mean, to fragment what is already a fragmented sort of system in the South further, I think would be really difficult in terms of administration, as well as, in addition, we also have to take into account staffing issues as well. So, we would have to staff the Rogers School for, that sort of sliver. I think, we would definitely, I think, run into issues relative to making sure that it was fully staffed and operating. So I think in terms of administrative complexity, I think, for South, I think it would be easier if we do it at the Lowell High School.
So it's not a
City-
sliver. It's
yeah.
not a sliver. You got
City
the Keith
solicitor.
Academy there, you got the Thorndike building there.
Thanks.
You've got the public housing right across the street from it. There's a lot of people live there.
Go ahead, Beck.
Oh, thanks. So, yeah, I was just going to say, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but to sort of add on to Professor Stewart's comments, we also did get the letter from the Secretary of State counsel, Michelle Tesserani. And again, one of the things that she pointed out, and I understand the Election Commission is moving forward with splitting the districts, but again, I think it's important to sort of, again, keep in mind that one of the things that Michelle had pointed out in her letter is that in terms of ease of voter, which is what this is all about, that in splitting the districts, we may be making it more difficult for voters. And so as far as creating yet a third in 4, I think that, Professor Stewart has kind of weighed in there on the complexities to the system, but I think maybe if it's possible that issue could be perhaps even studied a little bit further by the professor, and since you're going to be meeting weekly anyway, some sort of update if it's worth if there's any new information as to what kind of impact it also could potentially have on voter ease.
That's where people vote now. So.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Where Rogers School, people already vote at Rogers School in that area. So you'd be asking them to move to a different location. So it would decrease the voter ease by going out Rogers. I don't know if Rogers is the best place, but it seems to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, more polling locations does not necessarily always amount to an ease of voter needs, but I couldn't quite hear everything you were saying. What I was suggesting is really just that that these types of questions be sort of turned over to Professor Stewart, and not that he would be expected to give us an answer for tonight's meeting, but you know, that he be able to study it further and give a report back or some input back at the next meeting.
I want to weigh in here too. The Rogers School is a familiar polling location, and we've used it in the past. Given the traffic issues that are going on right now, especially with downtown, and then the Lord's Overpass, it's always crazy up there. So I think it's valuable for us to really look into this one. I thought it was it was a great thing that we did, Lowell High School and then, North and South. But looking at that piece, even just to get over there, like every day it takes me so much longer than it did before. Granted that we're going to have early voting, granted that we're going to have mail-in ballots, but if someone's used to going over there and voting, why not give them the opportunity to? Because this is all about, again, making it as easy as possible for as many people to get engaged as possible. And if we're thinking about the actual, like you brought up the point, the poll workers, I know that we have a lot of people on standby, especially with the community groups, offering additional help to us if we need it for that aspect. So I think, but yes, absolutely. If the professor can get with us, not in this forum, but have maybe do another meeting with the Elections Commission and him, and let us give him a little bit more lay of the land, since he's not familiar with Lowell. And then he weighs in and does his analysis, and then we can talk about it. But I don't think we should close that discussion right now.
Okay.
And we should do this as soon as possible.
Right. I mean, it would not take very long, I think, to think this through, but I do think we need to look just carefully at the numbers and those traffic issues, which are obviously serious in the city.
There.
In this area.
They are.
Very.
There's more people.
Believe we have a comment just relative to again, there's just some the gentleman is just indicating sort of percentages of voters in certain locations, and just said to take a.
Can you just read it?
As far as registered voters in District 4, Ward 5 represents 20% of the population. Ward 2 is approximately 40%, and Wards 10 and 4 make up the other 40%. Utilizing 3 locations is a much fairer split versus 80% versus 20. There are all locations we've used in the past. Voters in Ward 10 and 4 previously voted at the Rogers School, so it would be helpful to them. Thank you for your consideration. So.
I know there are a lot of walking voters too.
Yeah.
in Rogers.
Remember when we go and because we deliver a lot of ballots there. That's why I know it's busy, because we come back and you ask us to give us ballots.
Yeah.
So it's a busy location.
Okay, well, Professor Stewart could analyze it, and then at the next meeting, maybe we can.
No, not the next meeting. We want to do this as quick as possible, and I thought we were actually going to get this finalized this week so that we can roll this out especially for the preliminaries. So can we, I don't know, Professor Stewart's itinerary or his schedule or yours, But I would like for us to wrap this up this week, because next week we have other things to talk about.
Okay.
We have to do more than the last census data too, because there's been construction in that area. In the meantime, new apartments and things, so. Maybe city census.
I can certainly huddle with the staff the next couple of days with the chair.
I'll be open, I'll be available.
Okay. So, yeah, so I'll speak with Professor Stewart, depending on that analysis, we can reach in touch with the commissioners regarding, potentially scheduling a new meeting. I would note though, again, under the public notice requirements, you need at least 48 hours prior notice to, schedule a meeting, so. Okay, so I think that concludes those districts that have a preliminary election. If the commissioners would like, we could go to some other districts if you wish, or if you want to just focus on those districts that will have a preliminary and then leave analysis of the other districts when we have some confirmed polling locations for
I think that makes the most sense.
Okay, that's
Yes.
okay.
That's fine.
All right, so we will, so again, we've sort of done an initial analysis of districts 2, 3, 4, and 7. We will again confer with Professor Stewart, and
I
then
want us to make a motion on 2, 3, 4, and 7, and then we'll come back to 4 to see about the Rogers, but I would like.
okay,
to-
but you would like to sort of make a motion to designate the polling locations now. Well, okay, and then maybe depending on the analysis,
And
return.
then add
Okay.
Rogers, yeah.
Okay, okay. So what we'll do then is I'll propose the language. The election commission would make a motion to designate Robinson School and Greenhalgh Elementary School for District 2. And again, with the ward and precinct division as delineated, in our conversation. Again, so with 9-2 and 9-3 going to Robinson School and 9-1, 5-3, and 5-2 going to Greenhalgh. The election commission, the motion would also be to designate the Riley School and Immaculate Conception Church as the polling locations for District 3, with the Riley School serving voters from Ward 1, Precinct 2 and Ward 1, Precinct 3, and the Immaculate Conception Church serving voters from Ward 1, Precinct 1, Ward 11, Precinct 3, and Ward 11, Precinct 2. That for District 4, the Lowell High School would service voters in District 4, and the Greenhalgh Elementary School would also service voters from District 4, with the delineation being Ward 2, Precinct 1, Ward 2, Precinct 2, Ward 2, Precinct 3, Ward 10, Precinct 3, Ward 4, Precinct 3, and Ward 10, Precinct 1 to Lowell High School.
And 10-2.
And, oh yes, and 10-2. I did say 10-2, didn't I?
Mhm.
Okay. And then the voters from Ward 5, Precinct 3, Ward 5, Precinct 2, and Ward 5, Precinct 1 going to Greenhalgh Elementary School. And finally,
With,
oh,
with Rogers School as a tentative polling location as well, with tentative. I want that reflected back to the record.
okay, in the motion.
Yes.
And for 7, well, what you could do,
For 4.
well, right, but what
Yeah,
you,
for 7, yeah.
right, but what you could also do, I mean, you could also just make the motion designating it now, and then depending on what the analysis says, you would go back and then
And then-
make another motion. So
Okay.
I would recommend that you just do it as is, and then, to the extent after the analysis, it can also always be revisited, but as of right now, the motion should just reflect all of South 4 going to there, okay? All right, and then finally for District 7, the Lowell Senior Center will be the designated polling location for District 7, with voters being served at the Senior Center from Wards 2, Precinct 1, Ward 2, Precinct 2, Ward 3, Precinct 2, Ward 7, Precinct 1, Ward 7, Precinct 2, Ward 7, Precinct 3, and Ward 2, Precinct 3. And that is the motion as it stands. Do we have a motion maker?
I'll be
Or,
the motion maker
Okay.
if you add the Rogers School.
well, again, I would recommend that you just do the motion as is. And if the Rogers School is determined, based on the analysis to be a good point, like, you can always amend it at a later date.
I would like the motion, I would like the Rogers in there now, and then we can amend it to remove it and at a later date.
Second.
Okay.
It's the same thing.
Well, it's not, because we haven't designated the voters that would go to Rogers.
Why don't we just do that really quickly then? And then we can always remove it.
Okay, so I mean, would you be looking to designate the wards and precincts now for,
Same thing we just did.
okay, so I'm afraid I don't, so do you want the motion to reflect again, the way it was delineated out with Rogers to be a potential tentative polling location to be there? Okay, fine. All right. Okay, so Chairwoman has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I seconded it already.
You seconding the motion itself?
Yep.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Pope. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those indicating nay. Okay, hearing none, the ayes have it. So as of right now, these are the polling locations for the preliminary election. Again, for those districts that we know of that will have preliminaries.
Yep. Hey, we got something.
And obviously analysis on the other districts will continue, but right now we're focusing on,
Preliminary.
yeah, those that will be subject to the preliminary. Okay, just going to stop sharing this and move back. Okay, and then moving finally to item 3B. I just wanted to update the commission regarding early voting and mail-in voting. So the governor last week approved through the budget approved legislation that extends vote by mail and early in-person voting for all state and municipal elections to the end of the year. So as a result, we will be able to extend vote by mail to all voters who request it, even if they wouldn't have an excuse under the traditional absentee ballot procedure, just like last year. So because the governor has signed it, if the commission wishes, we can designate early in-person voting for the preliminary. And again, per the legislation, you can do up to 10 days of early voting. And I would, again, recommend, based on the feedback I've gotten from last year, that the Lowell Senior Center would be the best location to serve for in-person early voting, with us doing a full weekend prior to the election, so a Saturday and Sunday. And then the week before the election, Monday through Friday, we offer early voting during the hours in which City Hall is open, just like we did last year. So that would mean Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We'd offer early voting from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock at night. On Tuesdays, we would offer early in-person voting from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. And then Fridays, we would offer early voting from 8 o'clock in the morning until noon, the half day. And then again, Saturday and Sunday would be, I believe it was from 9 to 3. It was early voting offered on those days at the Senior Center on both Saturday and Sunday.
And then the other location would be here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think the solicitor had a statement first.
Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
That's
So
it.
I
Here.
said, the other polling location, aside from the senior center, we were looking at a second polling location for early voting. And we were thinking, was it the elections office, or are we gonna have a different one?
I'm still looking at that.
What do you think?
Well, again, part of the issue is that you have to have the same sort of list for early voting. And what could work, and I need to check on that, is if you have the election commission office serve as, quote unquote polling location where anyone could come in if they didn't want to go to the senior center and do it, you can check them in, through the VRIS system. But I'm still looking at that, if that's possible. I think that the senior center, when it served as their sole polling location, I think was just easier than doing it at City Hall, in part because of the parking issues and the fact that, you had a centralized location in which you could do your early voting through the poll pad. So the poll pad maintained the full and complete record of all voters who voted through early voting. So I think, the danger of sort of, splitting it, and again, I don't know if we can do that. The danger of splitting is that you're now no longer operating from the same list for early voting. So.
Professor Stewart, can you weigh in?
I'm not quite sure I understand the fine points of the question, other than the possibility of having early voting in City Hall. I mean, it sounds like part of the issue is maintaining a single record of who's voted early, which would seem to be a valuable thing. The issue about, as you know, about early voting is ensuring that people are only voting once in the early voting period. The other concern is adding what could be a manual process on top of the poll pad, which has the advantage of automation. So those are the two things that occur to me right now without doing a thorough analysis of it.
And the city solicitor as well.
Yeah, city solicitor, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So I understand that the senior center had worked well as a, sort of single centralized location for early voting. However, since we do have the benefit of working with Professor Stewart, and right now we're just looking at these 4 districts, if it would make sense to request that Professor Stewart look at maybe even an alternative early voting plan that also utilizes something on the other side of the river for those that are on the other side of the river, rather than just the senior center. Again, these will be 10 days of providing opportunity for people to vote early, but we've done it in different ways. Professor Stewart probably wouldn't necessarily be aware of how we've done it in the past, aside from having just the senior center. But one of the other things that we did was really went right out into the neighborhoods and to some of the sort of community centers, and had early voting kind of on the road, if you will, and set up these rotating spots. In this case, again, what we're really just looking at is 4 districts for early voting where there's going to be contests. And so my question is, would it make sense to request that Professor Stewart have an opportunity to take a look at perhaps an early voting plan that might be more beneficial to voters than just having the centralized location at the senior center for the entire period?
I like it. Yeah.
I did speak to the Secretary of State's office at the time about this idea, and it was one that Michelle Tesserani thought had potentially some value, and so Anyway,
You need a motion, or is he just gonna take it over?
What we could do is, you know, you could make a motion, you know, regarding a designation of an early voting polling location. You know, and then look at it further. I mean, we do have, you know, if we look at the just the calendar, just to provide some context. So it'd be September 21st, Tuesday would be the election day. So as of, you know, as of right now, the idea for in-person early voting would be, you know, at the Lowell Senior Center would be the weekend before would be, yeah, Saturday, September 11th and Sunday, September 12th. And then through the entire week. So from Monday, September 13th, all the way to Friday, September 17th. So that's 7 days. Now, you know, as indicated, you know, we're authorized to do up to 10 days early voting. So, you know, there may be opportunity there to take a look and see if, you know, you want to do alternative, you know, additional early voting across the river. You know, there may be a way we could do it with the same poll pad. So we have, you know, the same record for all our early voters. But again, maybe look to do it at an alternative location. You know, so that's something we can look at. So, so, you know, what I could suggest to the Election Commission is we could designate the Lowell Senior Center as our central polling location for early voting from, you know, the dates I indicated, with, you know, with the understanding that, you know, Professor Stewart and, you know, this office, the law department will look at other opportunities we can do to, you know, allow for additional early voting, maybe with those 3 additional days or maybe alternative times that can be done in a way that ensures that we still have integrity of the process and that we're operating from the same list or something like that. So, you know, I'm just sort of extending that to the commission. That's an option that we could do, you know. So that way we have a designated time for early voting, and that, but we, you know, we would still look at it and see if we can expand from there.
Great opportunity.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay,
So, yeah.
so I would suggest that the motion would be that the Election Commission votes to designate the Lowell Senior Center as an early in-person voting location from September 11th, Saturday, September 11th to
September 17th
17.
to Friday, September 17th.
at 12 p.m.
Yeah, at 12 p.m. You know, with the weekdays being the standard hours that City Hall is open, and then Saturdays and Sundays from 9 to 3, like it was the previous year.
I make that motion.
Okay.
We'll second it.
Motion from the chair, seconded by
And I'll second it.
Commissioner Athos. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. And you know, I will certainly, you know, coordinate with Professor Stewart and the law department to look at, you know, in addition to that, you know, potentially looking at expanding early voting, you know, across the river, or seeing other ways we can do it while still maintaining, you know, voter integrity to make sure that, you know, we're operating from the same early voting voter list.
So can we make that as part of our next meeting that's going to talk about the Rogers School after he does the analysis? Can we include that as another line item? So we can have a plan.
Yeah, if you'd like it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question too. You know, the city of Lowell does a census every year. Is that made in any form that we can use to update, you know, not officially, but at least see what changes there have been since the 2010 official census?
No, that's to re-precinct, you can only use federal census data. You can't use state data.
Well, we're not talking about re-precincting, but like, for example, our decision is whether or not to open up a third one in District 4. The question is, does anybody live down there? They can answer that. We're not looking at numbers, but do people live down there that might utilize that polling place?
Well, we do have, I would submit that I think the more accurate data set would be the registered voter list, because it's ultimately the registered voters that vote, that ultimately matter in the analysis.
So
So,
are we using that?
well, yes, we are. I mean, we are using it. So. Oh, the chair, the solicitor.
Oh, yes,
So, sorry, just to follow up though on the senior center. I mean, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that we have the senior center and another location, which I think would be challenging with respect to having that one poll pad record. So I know you already voted. I
you're
guess
suggesting the poll pad, what I understood was the poll pad's gonna move, right? It's not just gonna stay stationary at the senior. center.
correct.
It's gonna move,
So
it's gonna move all around. So that's what I understood it to be.
but it can't be at two places at once. So the vote to basically have the senior center as the place for the entire early voting, and then perhaps some other secondary place.
No.
But that's what you just voted on.
All
That
right,
was
so-
Elliot's motion that
okay,
he
so
laid
then
out
we-
there. And I think it's potentially problematic
It
in
is.
terms of what we're looking to do here.
Yeah, so we need to,
Okay. So do you want to rescind that motion? Okay.
yeah, let's
All right.
rescind that motion.
And I apologize. I should have rephrased it. So it would be a motion to rescind the prior motion. So to essentially render it null. So a motion to render the previous approved motion null.
Yes,
Okay. A motion from the chair. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Seconded from Commissioner Anthus. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. So just to be clear on the record, that previous motion to designate early voting has been declared null and void.
so I make a motion that the early voting timeframe would be September 11th to September 17th, with the senior center plus other identified community spaces throughout that week be designated as early voting locations via poll pad. So the poll pads are the ones that are traveling.
If I may suggest, it might be better at this stage. What I'll do is I'll confer with Professor Stewart and the law department. And what might be better is I could, depending on that analysis, we could set up an actual schedule. So we'll do an analysis. We'll see, what could work, what could be available, what dates, it might be good. So that way, when you actually vote on a motion, you're actually voting to approve it. You're actually approving what it would be.
So my suggestion would be just to utilize the actual polling locations that we already have.
Okay.
So one day senior center, the next day Robinson School, the next day Greenhouse, next day Immaculate, next day Rogers, next day LHS, like that. So it travels, so that's in the same polling locations. And it's early voting, people know where to go, and it's consistent with what we've already done.
Okay. Well, we'll certainly look at that, and I'll contact the school department regarding our options. Okay, and I'll make sure that this is on the agenda for the next meeting.
So there's no
Right, so
motion.
there was no motion. Yeah,
No,
no.
there-
So there was a motion that was approved, but then you did a motion. So the minutes will reflect that.
But then we're also approving that we're doing early voting,
Yes,
September 11th to December 17th. We
Right.
don't know where yet.
yeah, and
So there's also.
right, and I think the commission has sort of, you've articulated that you'd like that to be the early voting period. The question now is
Where?
how it would be structured and where, and that's something that, we will certainly look at and get back to you for the next meeting. Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, so that concludes the agenda for this evening. If there's nothing else, we can move to adjourn with an understanding the next meeting will be on next Tuesday. And next Tuesday, August 10th. Yep, 5:30. And again, my hope is that for the future meeting, we'll be able to use the mayor's reception room for our meetings. Unfortunately, there was a last minute issue with the microphones and LTC couldn't use it. So, but again, we will work to rectify that for future meetings. So,
I want to give an opportunity for a city solicitor or
Oh, yeah.
Professor Stewart to say anything if they'd like.
the chair wanted to just see if Professor Stewart or the city solicitor had anything else they wanted to add.
I really have nothing other than I stand ready to meet in the next couple of days over these various issues to get this moving. I will note that next Tuesday I'm due to be on the Cape, but I will do my very best to pull myself away from my spouse to attend the hearing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I don't have anything further to add.
And can we just take the last comment? I don't know what it
Oh,
is.
and let's see here, and one last comment from Mary Torres. Oh, thank you very much. Community partners, I believe, will be happy to weigh on a little bit during next week's meeting. Yeah, and I will send the Zoom link to anyone who requests it, per our agenda requirements. So, okay, so hearing none, we can.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, motion to adjourn from the chair. Do we have a second? Seconded from Commission Anthus. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Hearing that, the meeting is adjourned at 6:59 p.m.
The motion to adjourn is not debatable. So
Yeah.
no discussion.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Robert's rules.
It's funny.